All right, the open beta complete patch notes. This is the first major balance update we're seeing for Age of Wonders 4 since release. There's been a couple minor ones and a DLC which added new content, but really the interesting part is going to be, are they adapting to the complaints about their game and the problems their game has? So let's take a look. Research scaling. Previously, this was a huge problem. Research scaling was way too fast relative to the cost of techs, which meant that your mid-game became super compressed. You got very little early game, or rather a chunk of early game, but not a ton. You moved into the mid-game, and then your mid-game disappeared, and you're instantly in the end game because of research scaling. So let's see what they've done. The way knowledge costs are determined for skills and tomes have changed. Instead of the tier of the skill determining the cost, the knowledge cost is now based on the amount of tomes you've collected so far. That's good. For every new tome you unlock, will have increased knowledge cost of skills compared to the tome before, regardless of what tier of the tome the skill is. This is good for two reasons. First of all, we want the cost going up, so this is good. I mean, it kind of goes up already, but they've changed the rate at that, more than that, about that in a second. But the second thing is you could take previous tomes, and it was a little cheesy to do so because you could rapidly advance tech. You couldn't unlock new tomes necessarily, but you could get a bunch of really powerful buffs across a lot of low tier tomes and just stack them. And it's kind of nice to see that strategy get nerfed. It was a little cheesy, and it kind of didn't really let you engage with the later stuff as efficiently, or rather as well incentivized as you would like to have. The general knowledge cost of tomes is increased, especially near the mid and late game. Good. The base knowledge cost for skills for tomes is as follows. The first tome, general research and cultural research, 250. Second tome, 400. Third, 600, etc., all the way up to 5,000 for the 12th tome. Every tome afterwards is additional 1,000. Individual skills in tome now have a skill level adept, intermediate, or expert, and that adds a modifier on the knowledge cost. Individual skills in a tome have a skill level. Okay. So there's still variance inside, or rather, there's still a range of costs inside each tome unlock. All right, Magic Victory rework. Okay, previously the Magic Victory was kind of garbage. It was uninteractive. It was very boring, right? It came online super early. It was the easiest way to win, and it was just involved you sitting around and fighting infestations as the AI tried to get their shit together and come attack you. Let's see how it goes. The new Magic Victory rework focuses on the binding of the Golden Ancient Wonders to eventually cast the Age of Affinity spells. By using Ancient Wonders, the victory condition becomes more active and makes it different from the expansion victory. Okay, that's interesting. Previously, you built buildings in your, province improvements, and that was how you won. This is now interacting with Golden Ancient Wonders, okay? Upon selecting your first Tier 3 tome, a new global research skill appears, Bind Gold Ancient Wonder. It's a sustained strategic spell that must target the next Golden Ancient Wonder in your empire. That's, last part is not super cool. I mean, perhaps you are expanding towards level 3 Ancient Wonders. Ancient Wonders level 3 can be kind of painful to clear, especially there's a bit of variance between how difficult each one is, but assume that you're fighting the harder ones. It's quite a late game accomplishment. You don't necessarily want to settle near one of those. And you have a pretty limited number of cities. It's kind of annoying to have one. Maybe you can do it with an outpost. That might be okay. If you could do it with an outpost, that's fine. Wallbound provides research bonus, but more important of all, a number of them are needed to cast the Age of Affinity spell. The Age of Affinity spell appears when you first unlock your Tier 5 tome in the same place as the Binding spell. You can channel it while having enough bindings, but if you lose enough bindings during channeling, the spell will be canceled. You lose a binding when your wonder or the city it's attached to get occupied or changes ownership. Global spells are a separate research pick, not part of the 3 randomly drawn ones, and can be started or paused at any time once it becomes available. The amount of golden wonders scales with the size of the map. Okay, it's an interesting idea to change the location, change the way this is done so differently than it was before. I think this is better. It's going to make you go to places you probably don't want to go to otherwise. And if you can do it with an outpost, that's fine. But it makes a point on the map where people can contest. And it isn't in the center of your territory. So it's less likely to be on a spell jammer, less likely to be in an inaccessible location that has all your realms around it. It's kind of interesting. I wonder how many Ancient Wonders you're going to need. Because it says a number of them are needed to cast the Age of Affinity spell. I wonder what a number means and why they aren't specifying. That's pretty cool. Okay. All right. Summon and casting changes. We've added a system to limit how many spells can actually be launched each turn, as well as tighten the rules around which units can be summoned. Summoning spells can now only be targeted on cells next to your city and your ruler. That's pretty good. This was a problem. I mentioned it in my initial review. especially for playing player versus player, where you get sight on any territory, often from an invisible scout, and you just cast a summon there. And you cast a summon there, and a summon walks over and pillages. And that may not be a problem if the opponent can then cast a summon and fight there, but it's pretty dumb that it made distance and placement a lot less important than it ought to be. So it's nice to see that reworked. Cells next to your city. So not in your territory, but literally adjacent to a city and your ruler. You're still going to be able to offensively summon with this. It's better. It's definitely better. I kind of don't want to be able to summon outside my territory at all. I know it's slow to reinforce, but summons are so powerful. So that's certainly a step in the right direction. I kind of want to see how impactful it is. It feels like it would be kind of on the medium to low end of impactful, which is still an improvement. We've added a limit of casting 1 spell per turn on the world map. This can be extended to 2 by building the channeling chamber in your wizard's tower. Don't like that. I don't think. But here's why I don't like it. I liked the strategy, especially as the non-wizard leader. The wizard leader has insane amounts of points, so they're pretty much unrestricted on how quickly they can accomplish things like casting enchantments or casting racial transformations or casting world map spells or casting summons. They can do that a lot because they have a ton of points. The other one, the non-caster hero, has much more restricted points, which means they often have to spend multiple turns to get an enhancement online or to get a racial transformation online because they just don't have enough combat points or enough world map points, casting points to do that. If you can only cast 1 per turn, previously what you could do is you could kind of bank these up till you needed them. So if you got an interesting world spell, well, on a turn where you're not building a racial transform or casting a summon or whatever, you could just bank that spell. You could cast it, pay the mana cost, and have it ready to go. And then you could launch it when you're ready to do that. The 1 spell per turn restriction, if it impacts that, is going to be a little bit unfortunate because you're not going to be able to do that as well for the non-wizard. You're not going to be able to fit that in as nicely. And that character was already lacking a little bit in terms of power level compared to the other character and already struggling a bit to interact with the magic system. So let's see. We'll see what that actually works out to be. 1 spell per turn on the world map. Okay. It also means you're not going to be able to front load your offensive casts, which is maybe fine, but maybe not fine. I don't feel like the offensive world map spells are very impactful to begin with. So yeah, the comment in chat is needs to be clear if it's talking about finalizing the spell or casting or starting the casting. In other words, if you have completed spells when you release the spell, does that count towards your 1 limit, or does it only count towards your 1 limit when you start a spell? So it would have been nice to have a little bit more specifics in the patch note, and I'll have to play test that and see. My thoughts on the impact of that are going to be based on that answer. Map improvements. Oh, I do like that they gave the channeling tower a little bit more important. Casting 2 per turn. I mean, it might be online too late to be relevant, but if this is a major restriction, then the channeling tower becomes more interesting, and it wasn't very interesting before. All right, map improvements. We're tackling several elements of map generation that we've seen the community provide feedback on. The focus of these improvements will be on the underground experience, but we've touched up the overall map generation as well. Overall map generation needed some serious love. I think the underground experience is really secondary to the primary map generation, because it is nice to have an extra area, and the underground is kind of a cool idea, a little bit, sometimes not so great, a little harder to keep track of what's going on in there. Anyway, I like the underground just fine, but the thing that has to work first is the map that we play on all of the time, which is the overworld most of the time. So let's see what they've done with this. They reworked map generation. They renamed player distance to relative map size. Sure, that's all it did anyways, so it's kind of nice to see that. Added this is, to be clear, a cosmetic change, but still in the right direction. Added a new very large setting, which is increased distance between players and larger total map size. Indifferent to that. It's nice to have the settings be available. So maybe if I 1v1 on very large, I think that's not going to be quite a real thing, but we'll see. Changes the continent generation to allow for more varied maps and for small islands to form in the water. Okay. Cities can now annex provinces on the opposite layer through underground passages. This is possible when provinces on both sides of an underground passage are annexed. That's a cool idea. This last line leaves me a little confused. This is possible when provinces on both sides of the underground passage are annexed. Does that mean I have to outpost in the underground first? like, I feel like this last line doesn't make any sense. Isn't the whole thing that you're going to be able to do is be able to annex provinces underground? So if you're settled on or have in your territory a passage, but you don't have anything underground, does this mean I can or cannot annex underground? And if I already have the tile annexed on the underground, how am I expanding through that tile? I don't understand what that means yet. The wording is unclear how that interacts. The idea of being able to have a city occupy above and below ground is cool. Whether or not this actually works is to be determined, I guess. And if I have to outpost already beneath to get that, it's pretty unexciting. All right. Excavating no longer spawns a roaming stack of monsters that follow you. Thank fucking God. This was so useless. Who's going to be doing excavating? Your scouts. Why? Because you're looking for more materials and more things to do that. What can't scouts do? They can't fight roaming stacks of monsters. You're never wasting your hero time wandering around excavating the underground. There's many more important things to be doing. This made excavation literally pointless, because all that happened is your scout dug out an area. There's an underground stack there that chases your scout around for the rest of the game. It was so stupid. You now uncover infestations and guarded nodes instead. That's totally fine. At least infestations are a little less cool. Guarded nodes are totally fine. Guarded nodes are actually really cool because it means what you're actually doing is you're generating territory by excavating. You still have to clear that territory, but the territory isn't going to disrupt the things you already have. So it's now a potential expansion area that you've spent some resource, Imperium and scout time to unlock, and you might get something cool down there as you figure out what your scouts are doing. That's cool. Infestations are actually a super valuable resource by and large. If you have units nearby and can clear them, there's a bunch of good things that trigger out of that. Resources, experience, items, and then, of course, all the things that trigger off infestation clears, like city-state standing and whatnot, right? So uncovering infestations is probably pretty positive. And if they spawn like they normally do, where they have like some period of time and it's pretty long, 6 to 10 hopefully, turns before they start spawning, that might be okay. It's a little bit awkward to spawn enemy camps behind your line of expansion in this game, because although your heroes are fairly mobile compared to other units, moving large distances on the map is very time intensive and tends not to be a very good use of your hero time. There's just better to be taking dense fights again and again and again for experience, or moving towards strategic objectives. So maybe this will incentivize extra hero stacks, although extra heroes got nerfed later in these patch notes, or maybe it's going to incentivize a little bit more clearing around an area when you have underground that might be useful, but we'll see. But either way, this is way better than just random roaming stacks that appear out of the rock. So it's kind of nice. Improved player placements in the underground to better take into account positions on the surface. I have never done an underground start because I don't think it's worth wasting one of your racial characteristics to be underground oriented. I think it's probably a lore / kind of gimmick playthrough that you do to do that, and that's fine in that case. But maybe it impacts the city states. We'll see. All right. AI rebalance. Removed unit upkeep and unit cost discount from normal difficulty. Removed unit cost discount from hard and very hard difficulty. Unit cost discount. Removed unit cost discount from hard and very hard. Isn't that a nerf? So it got more difficult for hard and very hard AI to build units. Okay, so the first one is a discount on upkeep for normal. So normal got stronger, hard and very hard got weaker. Reduced unit upkeep discount from 33 to 15% on hard, and reduced unit upkeep discount from 50 to 30 on very hard. Okay, I want to keep in mind here, the AI right now is very bad. It's very bad at fighting. It's cheaty. And it doesn't understand any of the systems in its game. It just kind of does things, and it's an illusion of an opponent. And one of the big problems is it's not enough of a threat to make replaying interesting. So I am on board with the idea of trying to change the behavior, and maybe this is part of a systematic attempt to shape the behavior differently, but I'm initially worried when I see difficulty getting lower, because the difficulty is already very, very low. All right, remove stat bonuses for units on very hard difficulty. I don't hate this. This is a cheater kind of play, right? This is like the quintessential like Dungeons and Dragons problem, which is as you scale up difficulty, all you're doing is adding armor class and resistances to enemies, which makes a very unfun play style where the enemies are just better than all your stuff and are impossible to hit, and it's one-shot kind of garbage where you either hit them or you don't, and it becomes super binary, blah blah blah, right? All the D&D problems, right? So I don't hate seeing this removed, but again, this makes enemies easier, so hopefully they get buffed later on in these notes. Change unit production logic. The AI will no longer always produce units, but tries to keep up with the strongest human player. They try to have at least X% more army power than the human player. Okay. I don't know how accurate army power is. I almost never pay attention to it because it seems irrelevant to me. Heroes seem to be the strongest generating force on your team for basically till the mid game, and then maybe late game army compositions start being majorly impactful, right? Towards the end. But when does that come online? I don't know. So what happens now if I go a hero oriented strat and I just don't build a lot of units? Does that mean the AI is not going to build a lot of units and they're not going to know how to play and they're going to get farmed by me again? Let's hope not. All right, so what happens? Easy, they want 5% more. Normal, they want 20% more. Hard, they want 30% more. Very hard, they want 40% more. Okay. Change defense logic. Cities with walls no longer have always defend flag. This opens up additional units for the AI to use. Don't know what that means. When under threat, the AI will defend accordingly towards the threat. A statement like this makes me laugh a little bit, right? Does this mean prior to this patch it wasn't doing this? So if I read this as previously, when under threat, the AI would not defend according towards the threat. Okay, it's kind of weird that it made it that far. All right, thrown cities under siege will become a forced defense. Is this talking about then the AI behavior, like whether or not it bothers to defend a location? I don't know. Thrown cities under siege will become a forced defense. That seems important. The AI should be defending their thrown cities. Change how the AI takes siege duration. Maybe this is whether or not you have to respond. I don't know. Change how the AI takes siege durations into account when attacking and defending. Good. Change the disbanding unit logic. Okay. Here's how they changed it. They will no longer disband units on cities and victory condition structures that are under threat. I didn't know they were doing this. That's hilarious. I'm attacking their city. They disband all their defenders. Again, I told you this AI was such a fucking joke. Any improvements to it are going to be good. Never disband units on cities that are under siege. Improvements to AI summon logic. Remove the rule that AI can only summon units when there's combat nearby. Now the AI will summon units as soon as they're primed. The AI no longer needs to have a standing threat near their leader or cities to start summoning. Okay, so their armies are going to be utilizing summons better. Increase the research priority of units and summons. Increase the priority of each summon spell by the tier of units they would summon. Okay, so that means they're going to be incentivized to pick up higher level summons. Good. Increase the mission distant range to generate more things for the AI to do at longer range. I hope this is just AI missions for the AI and not player missions. Missions right now are pretty dumb, or rather, they are extremely high reward, extremely variant in how good they are, and extremely high reward on the high end. I had a mission in a multiplayer game. The first city state I met, you get a mission with the city state at a certain, like, I think it's the first tier of like friendly interaction basically. So pretty early on. And there was a reward from this. It was like kill some stack of enemies or some garbage mission like this. And I went and cleared this out. And my rewards were like small amount of city state influence and one item, or I could take 3 super overpowered items on like turn like 10. And they were like level 4 items, and they gave me 3 of them for just completing an AI city-state mission. Now, that is so powerful that you cannot avoid a mission like that. You can't just let it go. It was like absolutely top-tier items for your heroes, and super early in the game. And if we want to add the variance of it spawns in random locations, well, the further away it is, the more chance that something happens. You can't get there. It's behind a mountain range. The enemy player is around it, so you can't go near it. The enemy player clears it out themselves where they don't get the mission, but it cancels your mission, all this kind of stuff, right? So do I like the idea of the AI being more active? Yes, the AI is super not active. But if this includes player missions, you can't currently turn off player missions for the game. So you keep the problem of the balance quality of the quests and missions, and you make this more of a problem if you extend the range. So I'm a little hesitant about this change. We'll see what comes out of it. Economic focus changes. The AI should no longer replace gold, mana, and resource improvements, providing a stronger economy. Well, how do they place any improvements? I mean, good, the AI should do that. Change the rule regarding clearing ancient wonders. The AI will now clear them when they are in annex range to cities or outposts. Maybe they didn't clear before. I didn't know that. Changed Empire Development Rule. Rule set now includes taking into account free cities that could be integrated instead of only new cities. And Tactical Combat AI will choose more varied spells. So they improved the AI summoning. They gave them a change to how they want to represent their army strength, but they nerfed the quality of AI units and made them more expensive for the AI, but then improved the AI economy. That probably isn't enough. I think it's in the right direction. This is the only bit throwing me, reducing the discount for the AI at higher levels. I think this is to try to make them less spammy. And maybe that's okay, especially with the prioritization of higher level summons and higher level techs and a better economy. If they will instead, to be fair, like as my chat's pointing out right now as I'm doing this live, right? Which is the AI sending lots of spammy low tier units at you is essentially free experience for the player. It also messed up kind of like the power of their armies, since you can only bring 3 stacks into any fight. That meant if their stacks were only made up of level 1 spiders that they never dismissed and never leveled up or something, then those stacks are kind of hurting them more than they're helping them for the combat. So maybe this will help with that. I'm certainly willing to be open-minded about it and give it a test and see what this actually means. Hopefully the outcome is the outcome we need, which is the fights with the AI need to be harder, especially in the late game. So hopefully that will do that. The rest of the stuff is clearly in the right direction, with maybe the exception of the quest range one, which I think the quests need to be looked at in terms of single player versus multiplayer. Even just giving me a toggle to turn off quests would be fantastic, because they're fun in single player. In multiplayer, they're broken. So, all right. Yeah, and another comment from chat that's probably worth addressing is there doesn't seem to be a lot of tactical changes here, does it? So these are strategic changes. The AI is smarter about their unit choice, better about their economy, and more likely to make armies of higher level units. But tactically, the only tactics change was they'll now cast more varied, not even better necessarily, just they'll cast different spells. That's a problem. The AI doesn't know how to use the units in this game, and the combat layer is actually really exciting in this game. Has a lot of balance problems, but is a really exciting layer. So it's kind of a bummer not to see the AI actually engage on that level, on that layer, because it's a really fun layer versus other players. All right, art. Okay. I literally read this as added pointless. Okay, they added some lights and textures. Okay. All right, unit art. New Siegecraft icon, new Bind Ancient Wonder. What does PFX stand for? I don't care. Sure. All right, combat. Modify the XP cap so that dragons and rulers soloing battles earn less XP. A solo unit will now only earn 25% of the battle's total XP. Previously it was 50%. Added a small wait time in between turns to make turn transitions less jarring. I watched a portion of another streamer playing Age of Wonders multiplayer. He was playing simultaneous with other players, and he was using Dragon Ruler. I haven't played Dragon Ruler. I'm going to do that today on stream for the first time. His basic strategy was level his Dragon Ruler to get to a high enough level where he could then go solo all the camps with the Dragon Ruler. Because apparently auto-resolve with the healing elements of the Dragon Ruler meant he wasn't taking lots of damage, or some version of this, right? So I think this is probably okay. It's a weird incentive. It's a weird way to incentivize it. Does the player really need to be punished for leveling a unit to a strong enough position where it can farm smaller level camps? And then if player does get to that level, do we really need to reduce the experience gain from that? It's a weird way to do it, I feel like. It kind of, it's a workaround as opposed to, let's say, for example, okay, let me try to phrase this. If we think that solo heroes are too powerful, is the nerf to nerf the experience they gain from being too powerful, or is the nerf to try to bring them more in line with how you want hero and unit interactions to be? In other words, shouldn't this be a hero nerf, not a hero experience nerf? I mean, I wanted to roll with it. It's probably beneficial to not be able to do that, or at least to get reduced value for doing that. If they're going to fuck around with this level of experience, I would really like to see clearly how experience works. And I think right now I generally work with the heuristic of I want to match army size. So if I'm fighting a camp of 6, I don't want to bring 7 units to it. I will leave 1 unit out deliberately and bring 6 because it seems to impact my experience rate. But I'm not entirely sure the rules behind experience gain, and changing one of these, like, I know about it now because I've seen it, but any player starting the game, they're not going to go seek out patch notes from months ago to figure out this change is going to be relevant to this. So I guess I think this is probably a weird indirect way to nerf heroes, and I want the rules clearly defined so I can understand how I should be engaging with camps. So are heroes too strong? Yeah, they are. Is this a nerf to hero experience gain and therefore an indirect nerf to hero? Sure, maybe. But aren't there better ways to do that? All right. Small wait turn in between turns to make turn transition less jarring. That must be a simultaneous multiplayer thing. I don't notice that in single player or in turn-based multiplayer. Busted debuffs. Slowed. In addition to slowing movement, also disables retaliation attacks. I wouldn't generally care about this. I'd say, oh, that's neat, and just kind of write it off. But the problem is the strongest hero build, in my opinion, right now is the Battle Mage hero build. It's just very, very, very strong. And one of the strongest effects of the Battle Mage hero builds are the Freezing Breath, or whatever it's called, where the hero runs for, has a big, it's not even a cone, it's almost like a big line attack that freezes. And when the freeze fails, it slows. And I don't know if we need to buff that, is my point. That ability is too strong and needs to be nerfed. So do I like the idea that slow has a different condition? Yeah, that's kind of cool. But we need the Battle Mage build to be a little bit more in line with the other builds, ideally. We'll see if they touch those later. All right, Fortune and Misfortune. Reduce stacking from 5 to 3. So this is, Fortune is crits and Misfortune is fumble chance, right? So is that good? I haven't seen this be a problem one way or the other. Crits seem a little bit too easy to get, so maybe that will help. Evasion effects now correctly only work on physical, ranged, and magic attacks. This is a huge change. So currently Blink is insane because Blink gives you 40% evasion and it works against everything, including melee attacks. So that means if you blink in with your hero and then cast some spell like that Frost one I was just talking about, your hero is extremely difficult to deal damage to because they just blinked and they have 40% evasion. They have just done a big AoE attack that disables half the units around them. And then if they're running Weaver, they can reset and do that again next turn, giving them 2 to 3 turns of really, 2 turns of blink in a row, combined with any other defensives they have, which just makes it extremely difficult to kill things. So really nice to see melee get a little bit of a buff here by not being affected by evasion, which is how evasion reads, but not how it's been played in the game thus far. So this line is actually really impactful. So kind of cool to see. All right, changes to the cultures. Let's see what they've done. Feudal. The Defender is an ability called Heavy Shield. If my recollection, Heavy Shield was extra armor when they're not flanked. So Heavy Armor now gives them extra spell resistance, which is damage reduction. So let me clarify. They previously took less damage from physical attacks if they weren't flanked. And now it looks like they're also taking slightly less damage from magic attacks if they aren't flanked. I think that change is fine, but kind of irrelevant. The Bannerman. Reduced defense by 1, reduced damage of Banner Smite by 2. Okay. Small nerfs to the Bannerman. The Knight now has Giant Slayer and it does an additional 30% damage to large targets. I thought the Knight was okay. Giant Slayer may be impactful. I guess it helps them scale a little bit into late game, helps you clear some random camps that have big units in it. And additional damage to large targets, of course, is fun. This feels like, was Feudal too strong? I don't think Feudal was too strong. I think Feudal was fine. So these are very small buffs to Defender, which I think is a pretty bad unit. A slight nerf to the Bannerman, which I thought was a pretty decent unit, and a slight buff to the Knight, which is a difficult to get to but fine unit for a kind of limited period of time that might now be a longer period of time since they nerfed tech a little bit. Sure, okay. All right, High. Seeker Missiles, which were the awakened trait on Battle Mages and Archers. Renamed to Seeking Arrows. No longer increases accuracy. This is good because the buff to range is not innovative. I mean, it's annoying. Like it's wrong way of saying that. The buff to range in of itself is fine. Giving your archers better range is great, but there's a cost in the core game of Age of Wonders 4. The cost to increase range is you reduce accuracy over distance. But the buff basically negated the accuracy penalty from firing further. So this now makes this less powerful. And awakened archers were pretty powerful, so I don't hate to see that. So not a complaint at all for me. It seems kind of good. Awakened is now +3 spirit damage instead of +4. That's probably good. These are both, by the way, nerfs to the stacking archer strategy, since archers multi-attack. So instead of being a 1 damage difference, this is really a 3 damage difference. But anyway. Dawn Defender gained 5 HP. Who cares? Daylight Spear gained +1 resistance. Okay. Dawn Defenders are pretty garbage. Daylight Spears are fine. Awakener. Dormant trait Seeker Missiles replaced with Dormant trait Blinding Radiance. Okay, so I think archers are still Seeker Missiles. And it sounds like, Awakener is the tier 3 mage, right? So their tier 3 unit. Okay, so their tier 3 unit has switched the Awaken buff. It's no longer a range buff. It is now a chance to blind on hit buff. Blind's a powerful effect, but range is really powerful. Nerfing range on your units may make them unusable. We'll have to see. I think that's okay. In line with the rest of the stuff too. They clearly thought that every unit on high culture having extreme range and extra damage was too much, which it probably was. Battle mages now get Dormant Radiant Light instead of Dormant Seeking Missiles, and the hero skill. Wait, isn't the Awakener a battle mage? How can they tell me that in one line that the Awakener is getting Blinding Radiance, and then that battle mages get Radiant Light? Not sure. I have to go look at the units after this to see what they've actually changed around here. Okay. Hero skill, Coordinated Strike. Oh, this is just from the enchant. So they break their category rules to do this? Is Awakener support? I thought Awakener was a battle mage. Perhaps Awakener is support. And then battle mages get Seeking Missiles, or get Radiant Light instead of Seeking Missiles. I'll have to look again. Either way, they are nerfing the number of units that can get access to the extra range and reducing the power of the extra range ability. So, all right. Hero skill Coordinated Strike is now an expert skill from Adept, and Marked now has a 60% chance to apply rather than being guaranteed. I think these are both mistakes. The thing about hero skills from tomes is your leveling timing is different than your tome unlock timing, especially when you're trying to use tomes to generate early empire development unlocks to do things economically or, I guess power level wise. And what this means is by the time certain tomes unlock, you don't always have a skill point. It isn't always a good skill point to assign. Like, for example, maybe you want the capstone on any of the various trees. Maybe you want Weaver. Maybe you want Killing Momentum or whatever else, right? So the problem with putting these at weird spots is a lot of times they just become inaccessible. Just inaccessible totally, or are unusable with the build you're doing. So if I take a tome and I'm building Killing Momentum because Killing Momentum is better than the Spur to Action tree, like the support tree is the weakest of the 3 trees you build for heroes. So if I get things that are added to the support tree but are not just available at the first tier of the support tree, that I have to have a bunch of points in support, they become totally unusable. So I feel like this hurts tome diversity by double taxing you. You already have to pay the point to take it. The point is not necessarily in the tree you're building, and now the point is locked behind prerequisites that you are never going to take because those prerequisites are worse than the other prerequisites for other trees. I don't like that. It makes the uniqueness of getting abilities from tomes less cool because you basically can't use a lot of them because they're just worse than the alternatives. So do I like to see changes to this? Sure, but I want to see changes that make these more accessible and more interesting, as opposed to just things I never get because they screw up the core builds that all the heroes have to run because those are the strongest builds. All right, looking at Industrious. Steel Shaper granted the Grant Defense bonus becomes a free action cooldown to 2. This is good. Grant Defense was pretty weak. I feel like Steel Shapers were by far the worst of the support units, so giving them a buff is good. Industrious Bastion now has defensive master, so it always enters defense mode at the end of the turn. This is cool. I think defensive master is actually a really nicely balanced ability. It's very strong to enter defensive mode, but it's not like I'm killing all my opponents super well for this. It just allows more options of ways I can behave. I am less vulnerable to flanking with Defensive Master, which means I can play differently and play more interestingly. I really like this. I like Defensive Master as a buff, and seeing it applied to other units, a unit that I don't normally use, is going to make that unit more interesting, which is kind of cool. Inspired Defense is now a free action on a 2-turn cooldown. Cool. It's another small buff. Take it. All right. Arcanist. Reduce resistance to 1. Did Mystics need a nerf? I never didn't find them strong at all. And Soother now has Star Blades. I mean, that's a buff. Soother has Star Blades. Kind of a decent buff too, right? But the Arcanist reducing resistance, I guess. Okay. All right. Diplomacy. The trade value for equipment is back to the original item value, and extra limits have been added to make sure the AI will not ask or offer resources in return that deviate too far from the original value. Okay. It seemed like the best way to get rid of equipment by far was to just sell it to the AI at extremely high prices. So I guess nerfing that makes sense. The cost of starting a declaration of friendship or rivalry are now fixed at 100 gold instead of scaling over time. I think this entire system is kind of pointless, the diplomacy system in this game. So yeah, a declaration of friendship should not be a huge economic penalty because it's not valuable enough to justify spending resources on most of the time anyway. So it needs to not be up against things I actually care about if it's a low impact ability that I don't care about and unlocks a whole system. So yeah. The cost for boosting allegiance of a free city during negotiations are now shown on the button directly. Nice. Declaration of rivalry now has a new effect when it generates rival justification over time. This allows players to ignore part of the opposing ruler's grievance points when they declare war on that ruler. Okay. I feel like if you're paying for the ability to rival them, you should have the ability eventually to war them. So maybe. Made some text adjustments to better explain how the impact of war justification works on Imperium when involved in multiple wars. Good. Changed moderate justified war Imperium game from plus 10% Imperium to plus 10 Imperium. And changed extremely justified war Imperium game from plus 20% Imperium to plus 20 Imperium. I guess I'm not too fussed one way or the other on the justified war stuff. It's the unjustified war penalties that were really extreme. Again, their diplomacy system doesn't really work right now. So changes to the values of it are fine if it moves us in the direction of the system being impactful. This feels like a reduction in the impact of the system, so even less reason to play within the system. But scaling Imperium by percentage is pretty strong, so okay. Remove the Imperium gained when releasing a city as a vassal. I didn't know you got Imperium when you released a city as a vassal. It's interesting. Add in an Imperium. I guess maybe this is if you, not if I conquer a city and make it a vassal, but if I have a city already and then I release it as a vassal, I gained Imperium. I've never done that, so I didn't know that was a thing. Add in an Imperium cost for releasing cities as your own vassals. This cost increases as you release more cities. I think Imperium is... I think the Empire development system is a really fun system to play with as the player. I don't think it's super well balanced right now. I don't love the changes to it necessarily, but I think it's a fun system. If Imperium gets harder to play with, you have to prioritize more cleanly, right? Like, you can't do as many different things with Imperium, right? Like, and thank you, FilthyRobot. You've described the fact that if you have less of a resource, you can spend it in less places. I'm sure none of you knew that, but here we are pointing this out for the reason of, if I'm forced to decide between having cities or having small interesting bonuses on the Empire development tree, I'm going to choose cities because the cities are essential. The Empire development bonuses are fun and sometimes decently impactful, but to begin with are less important than cities. So my concern with something like this, these types of changes, are if you nerf Imperium generation too much and make it too expensive in too many locations, you lose the fun portions of the Empire development tree. Now, is this going to be a problem for that? I don't know yet. I don't have a good sense of how impactful this is. It doesn't seem very impactful from the first read here. So we'll see. All right. So First city is free, second city is 75 Imperium, third is 150, fourth is 225, fifth is 300. Okay. Sustained city spells that grant economic bonuses no longer work on vassals. Okay. All right. Empire. Advanced Scrying, Forced March, and Siege Project slot are unlocked earlier. Okay. These are Empire development tree skills that are generic trees, I believe. I don't remember what Scrying does. I think it's +3 like sensing range, maybe 3 sight range as well. Force March is a powerful one. I haven't interacted with this ability very much because it comes online so late, so we'll have to see exactly what comes out of this. But that seems fine. Advanced Scrying now increases vision range by 2. I can't remember if it was 3 or 1 before. I think it was 3, but okay. Skilled Raiders now gives 20% as the description implies instead of 25%. Sure. Philosopher Soldiers now explains the amount gained for each rank in its description. That's good. I had no idea how much it was giving me, so it would be nice to know how much that is worth. That lets me evaluate whether or not I want to take it. No comment on the balance yet because I don't know what they are, but nice to see tooltips being added to. New Empire skill added, Advanced Logistics. It has the following effects. Move point cost of roads outside of the enemy domain are reduced to 3 instead of 5. That is super powerful. Roads inside your, well, is it super powerful? I think it's super powerful. Roads inside your borders already are 3 instead of 5, but I guess how often are you on a road outside of the enemy territory and outside of your own territory? Maybe that's not super powerful. Maybe that's just moderately powerful. It's nice for scouts. I suppose if you're moving armies long distances by road, that's okay. And you can build roads in neutral territories, and the road is built before the army moves, so you can use this to utilize the road skill to move quickly, which is probably okay. It seems like a powerful ability. Movement abilities in this game are strong. Or army movement abilities, to be clear. Units gain fast embark, and when embarked, they have very fast movement speed. Okay. Factions. What are factions? Gave Shira the Snowbound the White Wolf trait properly. That, if you had asked me, was this a thing of Age of Wonders 4 or a different game, Shira Snowblood the White Wolf trait, I would have said that's a different game. So I have no idea what that does. Elaborate what the form adaptations do mechanically. The different walk properties also state what the movement costs are before and after the property. This is more tooltip stuff. That's fantastic. Fixed various minor issues with traits not displaying correct values in text. Also a big deal. It's really fucking annoying to like theory craft out a race and then like design it in the designer and then play the game and find out the bonuses you're being promised are different. So nice to see that. Body trait, quick reflexes. This is evasion, which is archer resistance to your racial, the racial guys, your race that has this rather. And the evasion is reduced from 30% to 25%. Sure, I think that was one of the most powerful traits. Giving a little bit of nerf to bring it in line with others is fine. I'm not sure 30 to 25 changes my priority list on that, but okay, still a very strong trait. Defensive tactics now grants 10% evasion on top of +1 resistance and +1 defense. I don't think low levels of evasion are that impactful. So if we keep seeing them systematically nerf ranged, then maybe low level of evasions are impactful. Maybe. I don't think this trait is very good. I'm not sure this changes that, but I guess, and these are body traits, right? So it's competitive with quick reflexes. Again, it's in the right direction. The trait was too weak. The other opposing traits were too good. Moving it closer in line is good. I'm not sure that's enough. All right. Mind trait. Water adaptation has been renamed to swamp adaptation. Amazing. Swamp adaptation now also grants river walk. Sure. Underground adaptation now grants +1 and next range on cities in the underground of this race. I'm pretty certain it's still not worth ever picking underground adaptation, but okay. Buffs to worthless traits are in the right direction. All right. I think my chat is pointing out, someone said river walk is a very strong trait. I think all of the walk traits are decent if you can find corresponding terrain. I think they're all, I think army movement is very powerful in this game, and all of those traits affect army movement, which is cool. So sure. I just don't think the adaptation traits are worth it. So how do you do this, right? So you can't see your land before you start. So if you force underground adaptation, you will force underground. So you're going to be guaranteed that one. But these other ones, are you guaranteed this terrain in some way that I'm not aware of? Like, am I guaranteed that my opponents are going to have this terrain? How much of this terrain am I guaranteed? Like, it seems like a pretty big deal to give up one of my traits. I only get 2 of them. I get 1 body and 1 mind to give up one of my traits for a terrain adaptation that's not necessary. Now you can be like, hey, Filthy, but what happens when you play on these other maps? Yes, if you change one setting that makes the map desert, and then you take a desert adaptation trait to play on that map, I mean, I guess, but it seems like it defeats the purpose a bit to me. So anyway. All right, society traits. Society trait Chosen Destroyers now has access to city structures that can increase hero cap. One can be built every city tier of the Throne City. So Chosen Destroyers are the guys who can't found cities, right? So this is essentially trying to give them a way so they can have a hero count that's not ridiculously low while still playing their game. Sure. All right, Wizard King. Overchannel starts on a 1-turn cooldown. Okay. Overchannel is decent. It's one of the only ways, I think it may be the only way that you can impact the number of spells you can cast per round. So having the Wizard King give double spells, I think that's fine to have it on a 1-turn cooldown. Sure. I mean, does that change anything? I guess it, because you can't cast spells on the first turn anyways, right? So I guess it changes things when you have the Blue Empire development trait that gives you spell casting on the first turn. So, okay. All right, and the Wizard King now only gains +5 casting points every other level instead of every level. Well, they certainly had too many casting points compared to the other hero for the bonuses given. This is a nerf of about half. Sure. I think that's okay. I mean, they're clearly trying to make the Wizard King and they're trying to make the hero, the leader options, the ruler options for your empire be different but relatively balanced. And the Wizard King was definitely a standout. So, sure. All right, heroes. The upkeep cost for each hero over the hero cap has been changed from a flat 30 gold to 15% of the player's gross gold income. This is a really good change. Heroes are very strong, and overcapping heroes is both the most efficient way to creep, the most efficient way to use resources, and the most efficient way to beat other players. Yeah, that needs to happen. So, good. I guess I say that, but I do it without looking at the math. What's the breakpoint at this? So, calculator time. What is that actually work out to be? So, what am I looking at? I want to know what 15% of X is. See when it's greater than 30. Okay. So at 200 gold, I think. 200 gold is the equivalent point. 200 gold per turn. That might not be good enough. I don't know at what level I get 200 gold per turn because I'm used to seeing gold income per turn, which I think displays after your minuses are removed. So I need to look at when that occurs. If this occurs fairly early, that breakpoint, this is a good change. If this isn't until later that this breakpoint appears, that's not quite as good. Because I think, again, one of the problems is heroes are the best overall unit, especially early, and snowball super hard. So hopefully this actually means that in the early game, it's still not always best to just spam out as many heroes as you can possibly afford. So we'll see. Implemented a limbo system for hero items. When you unequip them, it takes X turns to become available for other heroes to equip, cannot be traded with other players, cannot be sold, does not count towards arsenal effects like horde mechanics. This is so nice because this is just quality of life. Right now you get a flying mount. You're forced to juggle it between all of your heroes because it gives much more movement than any other type of mount. Same with like fighting stuff, the horde mechanic. I watched again another streamer play a dragon hero, and every turn he would unequip all of his items to get the horde mechanic, giving him money per turn. It looks so obnoxious to have to play. To engage with the mechanic, you were forced to do really boring things and do them repeatedly. I don't even care at the balance of this. Like maybe it's not powerful enough that this is how this behaves. I don't care. I just want that quality of life shit, like that negative quality of life aspect, out of my game as soon as possible. So I'm really happy about both those changes. All right. Hero background traits. Affinity Adept hero background traits now grant +1 Empire affinity instead of 3. That's a huge nerf. Hero background traits are kind of all over the place. You can't really control them, and some of them are super powerful and some of them are super weak. I actually didn't hate the Empire affinity being at +3. It made the hero go from a combat-oriented hero to a powerful ruling hero, right? So, or not, I guess not ruler, but governor hero, which it gave you affinity points per turn, but you didn't get a combat bonus. This is a huge nerf from 3 to 1. 1 is probably better than some of the bad abilities, but now a lot less good as overall options go. I wish they would tune up some of the other ones. The fact they only changed this one leaves me a little bit annoyed because there's a lot of worse ones out there and there's a lot of better ones out there. And the better ones didn't get touched and the worst ones didn't get brought up. This just takes this one. It's not even in my top quarter anymore. And now it's like way down the list. So I'm probably just not using this one anymore unless I'm forced to, kind of deal. So I like the direction of the change. I just think it's probably not enough without touching the other ones. And distracting now has a 60% chance to inflict distracted rather than 90%. Yeah, I don't know. All the low percent base things are kind of unexciting to me. Heroes get really high resistance really fast, and I don't know. That's okay, I guess. All right, hero skills. Precision training no longer grants critical chance. This seems like an overall design change for them to try to reduce crits. I think that's good. I also think crits should be by unit as opposed to by spell. I'm pretty sure right now if I cast an AoE spell on a hero and it crits on everybody. And I'm pretty sure about that, like 75% certain right now. I think what I'd prefer to see is it be individual. And if it is individual already and I'm wrong, great. But the impact of a crit right now is really high. Lightning Evoker, increased damage from 10 to 14. Okay. These are hero skills, right? So this is one of the early battle mage skills. I skipped this one because it's so not good right now. So bring it from 10 to 14 seems good. Endurance training, reduce HP from 15 to 10. Not real happy about that. This is a support skill for the team, right? So I think support is the weakest tree right now. So, okay. Weaver no longer works on summon abilities and overchannel from the Wizard King. That is not the problem with Weaver. I'm sure a lot of people are using summon abilities and resetting, but summon abilities are slow. Like, I'm not even sure taking 2 turns to cast 2 summons is good. I think the problem with Weaver right now is the impact with the nuke spells, particularly the dark and high nuke spells, and then the Frostfire evocation, right? So those are, and then the AoE Frost Breath one. Those are the super strong ones, and the ones that I'm most concerned with the Weaver interactions, not summon and overchannel. All right, Channel Power is now a free action that gives 50% damage boost to magic attacks for the current turn only. That's good. Channel Power was entirely useless before. It was basically never worth spending the actions to get an 80% buff to take your entire turn kind of deal. So now being a free action makes that usable. I'll have to see if 50% is too powerful. I don't think it will be, but we'll see. Summon Elemental now works in water maps. I didn't know it didn't. Comet Breath. This must be a dragon ability because I don't know this ability. It's now a full action, has its range increased to 5 from 4. They rebalance dragon auras. The Order Aura, Materium Aura, and Astral Aura no longer give bonuses to the Dragon Lord itself. And the Chaos Aura was redesigned. I'll have to look at these in-game. I haven't looked through the dragon abilities yet, so seeing those might be interesting. We'll probably do that today on stream. Chaos Aura now gives burning to adjacent enemies, has a 90% chance to proc a random negative status effect on random enemies, and now gives a random buff to adjacent allies. Okay, and the Shadow Aura was also redesigned, now gives slowed and weakened to adjacent enemies, has a 60% chance to freeze adjacent enemies. The Nature Aura now gives regeneration to the Dragon Lord, and now gives decaying to adjacent enemies. The auras are an interesting idea. I don't actually find that my hero spends a lot of time standing next to a bunch of enemies in melee. I'm pretty sure auras are just adjacent, so I don't think the auras are that impactful. But maybe the dragons are tanky enough in some way that I don't understand yet that they can do that. But mostly I find that's kind of not a real thing. Okay. All right. Interface. Added notes to status effects to explain which status effects counter other status effects. That's good. I wish they would also adjust their design for this. The number one most annoying interaction right now for me is in the Battle Mage hero tree again, where your second tier nuke is a fire nuke that applies burning, and your third tier nuke is a frost effect, which applies freeze. If I frost a burning target, it puts the burning out and doesn't apply the frost effect. So currently, my hero build, if I take both of those, gives me one ability that doesn't work with the next ability in the same tree, even though the first one is a prerequisite for the second one. Now, it's not directly a prerequisite. There are some other options you can take, but it is the nuke line, which is super stupidly annoying. So it is nice to note and tell the player that this is going to happen. I also wish the hero design reflected this, that they didn't give you abilities in the same tree that were in a line of the nuke line of things to do that also screwed each other out of their status effects. But it is good they're telling us about it, I guess. Added a notification when finishing excavating a province, sure. When a unit gains benefit from pack hunter, animal kinship, and defensive tactics. Wait. Why is this too? Okay, so the bullet points are just weird here. When a unit gains benefits from pack hunter, animal kinship, defensive tactics, or overwhelm tactics, this is now displayed. Good. Removed inspect option and reward screen for units. Why? Remove the casting cost and strategic transformation screen. Why? Lock the camera zoom layer when annexing provinces. Okay, I don't even know what that means here. Enable the launch now button for tactical spells that have no specific target. Okay. Move the center view on selected object to correct key binding category. Okay. Custom realms with DLC traits will now gray out if the DLC is not owned or not enabled. And allied victory checkbox now grays out when teams are enabled. Now remembers the position of the scroll bar after inspecting a unit in the unit production list of the city interface. Okay. The about pages are in the same size, so buttons to click next align with each other. Okay, sure. So pretty much non-consequential stuff down here. Multiplayer, multiple out of sync issues fixed. Good. Stability fixes, mostly related to tactical combat. Cool. All right, is there more? The first post was July 6th, and the second one is also? Oh, so they might have either run out of characters or they have stuff they forgot in the first round. All right, let's keep going. Okay, Pantheon. Added a blocked underground miscellaneous realm trait. Mega Cities trait now gives all players access to city structures that can increase hero cap. One can be built every city tier of throne. Does not stack with chosen destroyers. What is a Pantheon? Pantheon are the meta unlocks, right? The points you get from winning games and then can be assigned into this. I have to look up what this means. I'm a little concerned. Hero caps are extremely powerful because the hero cap is what impacts the upkeep of heroes, and heroes are super strong. So all players gain access to city structures that increase the hero cap is pretty wild. Did they just nerf hero? They just increased hero upkeep when you're over the cap, but now gave us a way to get more heroes in the cap? Okay, but it's a world setting. So it's just an unlocked optional world setting. Okay, if that's the case, great. That's fine. If it's an optional world setting, you can choose to play with that or not, I'm fine with that. If this is a building that's unlocked for meta progression for players, I'm going to be a little dubious about it. So we'll see. Okay. Ashen War Realm trait is no longer gives its quests an event in team games. Sure. Okay. Updated Magic Victory tutorial. Combat tutorials are now properly hyperlinked. Good. Tomes always give +5 casting points regardless of the tier. Previously, tier 3 and tier 4 gave +10, and tier 5 gave +15. I do feel like casting point creep is a real thing, so probably nerfing that's good. Casting points should feel impactful, I think. I think the way they're designed and the way all the interactions with them, are that they are a finite resource that you care about. So nerfing that's probably good. All right, these are specific changes to scrying. Summon Watcher cost increased. Was Summon Watcher too powerful? If it was under my radar. Amplification tome I have banned for the last like 10 games I've played or something because this is such a powerful tome. So seeing this get nerfed hopefully is going to be good. Let's go. Amplification tome now grants 50% damage increase for tactical. Now grants 50% damage increase for tactical summons. Has static charge, dealing 6 lightning damage to melee attackers with 30% chance to stun them. The pylon no longer has blight immunity. And the Summon Conjure Astral Keeper now works on water maps. So there were no nerfs to this? Oh, this is the pylon, not the tome. Okay, I missed that. Okay, this is the pylon. I don't care what the pylon does. Okay. All right, so no nerfs to the amplification tome. Really? All right. Chaos. Horde. Spawnkin. Now gives 10% evasion to heroes instead of extra damage. Well, it shouldn't have affected heroes to begin with. Is 10% evasions better or worse than 20% damage? It's probably worse now that evasion got nerfed. If they hadn't nerfed evasion and evasion still impacted melee, this would probably be a buff, honestly. Like, the damage is good on the heroes, don't get me wrong, but the ability to keep your heroes alive while still doing hugely impactful turns every turn is huge too. So, okay. I don't mind this change. Didn't really make sense. Spawnkin was supposed to increase like the number of units in your formation to give extra damage, and increasing the number of units when you have one unit is a weird thing to even be able to be applied. So I think this is fine. 10% evasion is a lot less valuable now that it only affects ranged attacks. All right, Blaze of the Horde. Now it does 20 damage to a single target with an extra 4 damage for each adjacent friendly unit. I didn't care about Blaze, so that's fine. Fury of the Horde now costs 20 mana and 20 casting points. Another nerf. And Battle, I think that's a nerf, right? And Battle Seeker Training now gives 1 defense, 1 resistance, 1 status resistance, 5 HP to tier 1 units instead of 20% damage. So I didn't like all the stacking damage you could get in Chaos, and have changed those to be more varied in their buffs. Okay. 1 defense, 1 resist, 1 status resist, and 5 HP is pretty decent, honestly. 20% damage is pretty decent too, though. So that seems okay. All right. Materium. Artificer. Tome. Artisan Blades no longer apply to range units. I didn't know that it did. Okay. Win. The Zephyr Archer. Zephyr shot damage reduced from 34 to 30 and no longer has slippery. I never built a Zephyr Archer, or rather I built it like once, and mostly because I felt like the Glade one was just, I didn't like the tome that Zephyr Archer was attached to, the Wind Tome. So it seems weird to nerf the only reason why I might want to take a Wind Tome, which was the Zephyr Archer and Abduct, right? So it used to be pretty comparable to the Glade Archer, the Zephyr Archer. I'm not sure that with these nerfs, the Zephyr Archer is even comparable anymore. So it seems kind of weird to get that nerfed. Maybe the damage was too high and I just didn't know. Like, maybe it was super powerful when you used it, but it was kind of a long way out of your way to get this unit. And Slippery was really kind of defining. Slippery is the ability to walk out of zone of control, so your archer could just walk back and then shoot, which was kind of interesting. You gave up action points to do that, of course, because you have to walk away before you can shoot, but it meant that your archers really couldn't be trapped in melee, which is kind of interesting too. All right, Golden Realm. Added plus 10 income to the reagent refinery. Okay, I don't know what that means yet. All right, Nature. Beasts. Summon wild animal now has a chance to spawn a wyvern hatchling or a slither hatchling when used over temperate terrain. Okay. So more animals. More animals is probably a slight nerf to summon wild animal. I don't know what these new animals do, and I'll have to check it out, but my expectation is they're probably not as good as spiders. Spiders have been extremely, extremely good. All right. The Glade Tome. Glade Runner. Tracker's Mark now only applies 2 marked instead of 3. This is the other archer that we were just talking about, who has a passive, active ability that costs 0 action points, has kind of, I think it's 5 range, and then can basically apply a debuff to a target, and that debuff is slightly nerfed. This is probably the best archer in the game, certainly at the level that it's available. So seeing a slight nerf to that is probably fine. I think it lost all of its... I was reading this as a reduction in the number of mark stacks, but I think in retrospect, this is probably only mark stacks instead of the armor debuff that they also used to apply, which is pretty big. Do I think that's a good change? I go back and forth on how overpowered the range builds were. I think the range units are one of the units that most is affected by transformations and enchantments. So stacking a ton of enchantments on archers and then using powerful archers was pretty strong. But there are counters to that. Heroes are really strong right now, and archers don't have particularly large HP pools. So like AoEing down archers is a real thing that heroes can do with their abilities. And the evasive creatures like storm spirits are really strong too. And then one of the other problems with archers was like awakened archers with the extra spirit damage per hit, and then the extra range and the extra accuracy. They already nerfed awakened. So do they need to individually nerf all of the archers as well as nerfing all the racial traits that go with it? I don't know. I don't know that that's the most overpowered strategy I'm encountering, but it is a strong strategy, so maybe tuning it down is okay. All right, Tome of Vigor. Summon Greater Animal now has a chance to summon a Slither or Adult Wyvern. depending on the location summoned, except for fire and frost wyverns. I need to go look up what those animals do to get a real sense of how strong or weak that is. This seems like they're just increasing diversity of units. And again, I'm pretty sure anything besides a spider was probably not what you wanted to begin with. So this might just add more to the pool. It might be a slight nerf. All right, order tomes. Legion of Zeal now affects ranged units. Pretty wild. Dude, I wish I could remember which was which. One was all the small units. If this is the one that impacts the tier 1 units, sure. If it's the one that impacts all of I think it's all faithful units or something like that, that could be interesting. A lot of the rider effects are very good on ranged units because the ranged units tend to attack multiple times per turn, which means the impact of the enchantment that you apply to the ranged units is applied 3 times per turn instead of like 1 for a shock unit or something like that. So in general, any improvements to the enchantments targeting ranged units are powerful. So we'll see. Faith, remove the +5 Imperium income on the Covenant of Faith spell. I think that means I never want to cast the spell again. I think the Imperium income was the reason to cast the spell. Added 10 gold income on the Covenant of Faith spell. I don't care. I'm never casting that spell again without the Imperium. Probably never taking that tome again either, but we'll have a look. Inquisition, Inquisitor's Zeal, renamed to Inquisitor's Mark, no longer grants Zeal and Accuracy. Grants instead 30% base attack apply condemned, 30% base attack to apply weakened, 30% base attack to apply slowed. I think that's a nerf. In a bad way. I found this unit squishy and hard to keep alive, the Inquisitors. Although this is not that. Sure. Seems like a weird change. I wonder what prompted it. Upkeep cost increase, sure. Sanctuary, increased mana income of the Sanctuary special province from 10 to 15. Oh, but they took it off as a Spelljammer. Okay, this was the tier 2 Spelljammer. You could get this online way ahead of the tier 3 Spelljammer, and it gave you benefits as opposed to negatives. But it's no longer a Spelljammer. So they want to give it 5 more mana and take away Spelljamming and ask me if I'm going to take this ability again? Probably not. I probably don't care, but we'll see. Like, I probably don't care to ever take that thing again. Not that I don't care about the nerf. The nerf is a huge nerf, making it not a Spelljammer. Yeah. All right. And I'm also worried about taking the Sanctuary tome ever again, right? Exaltation, reduced Imperium income on the Statue of the Leader from +5 to +3. What is the Statue of the Leader? I don't think I've ever built that. I didn't know there was another thing that could be designed to increase Imperium. I mean, this is pretty clear. We're seeing now as we get through these patch notes that they're overall trying to make Imperium a rarer resource to get. Chat's telling me it's a tier 5 tome or tier 4 tome. I think at tier 4, 5 Imperium is probably not overpowered, but what do I know? All right. Shadow and Reaper. The Reaper's Finger of Death now summons a decaying zombie, not a normal zombie. Okay. The Harvest Population spell from Tome of Reaper is now a sustained city spell. While active, the city's food income is blocked, including from converting food draft to food. It loses 20 stability, but gains 10 soul income. It's pretty specific. That could be fine. I don't think Reaper buffs are a problem. Or Reaper, like to the point that I don't know that nerfing it matters. Like, is a decaying zombie any different than a normal zombie? Sure. 10 souls income per turn sounds worthless. I don't think you're going to cast this spell very often, for sure. But sometimes you can struggle to get souls, especially when you don't have a ready source of combat, if you reach some sort of stalemate position. So having a way to passively generate souls is reasonable, I suppose. I also don't think I would probably take that spell very often, but maybe there's at least a edge condition where you might want to do that. All right. Evolution, Youthful Regeneration, now grants Resurgence to evolve units. Wow. I haven't reviewed the Evolution Tome on stream. I had a look at it the other day, and it seems really strong outside of its affinities. Why, by the way, is the Evolution Tome Chaos at all? I get Nature, but it's a Chaos Nature split tome with really interesting evolve bonuses. I think it already had in there the protection of evolving units if they died would come back. I'm not sure how this changes that. I thought basically they already had that as part of this. So I guess we'll see what that actually does impact wise. It's kind of a neat ability. I don't know where it's going to be helpful. I guess when I'm creeping, I can do more auto resolves or be more willing to risk evolving units because they're going to come back. The rapid evolution enchantment grants tier 1 and tier 2 units slip away rather than resurgence. Seems like a nerf. And draconic vitality now caps level 5 when giving a bonus to heroes. I don't know what that does yet. That's one of the dragon abilities that I haven't played with yet. So, all right, units, ranged units. Reduce the optimal range for ranged attacks of skirmisher, ranged, and battle mage units. This means they now start getting long range penalties when 3 hexes away rather than 4 hexes from the target. I'm starting to see the pattern they're doing here across these nerfs, which they're trying to make range less dominant of this weird like standoffish stuff where all you're really doing is casting your ultra long range abilities and then picking away as no one wants to move in close enough because they get absolutely deleted by range balls. So I don't hate range nerfs as a whole, but what I'm not seeing to go along with this yet, and I still have hope, there's still more patch notes that I haven't read through yet. I want to see some hero ranged nerfs, because right now the best range unit is actually just your heroes casting spells. So they've nerfed archers, individually nerfing the tier 2 archers, group wise nerfing awakened archers, enchantment wise slight nerf too, right? And now they're nerfing here as a group all ranged attacks, but so far they haven't nerfed hero AoE magic attack abilities yet, which don't use the range characteristic like this. They don't have a range accuracy penalty for casting the spell at max range. There is no range penalty to that. So I hope I see that, because that's already the dominant strategy. And so anyways, is it good? There's a lot of melee units that don't see a lot of play because they're much weaker than involving range strategies. So maybe that will bring those up. That's a good change by and large. All right. Ranged unit legendary rank no longer grants accuracy. I didn't find that to be a problem. I felt like archers are one of the more fragile units that you can play against the AI with. The AI often suicides in my games to kill archers. I wasn't finding that I was like getting super legendary rank archers super early that were dominant across the course of the game, especially not for the archers that I care about. Like tier 1 and tier 2 archers, especially tier 1 archers, like the ones that most of the races start with, are really fragile. They have very low HP, have almost no defensive stats, and they're pretty easy to kill. So I don't know that I want to see a legendary nerf. The legendary rank, to be clear, is the maximum rank the unit can obtain after it's fought in a lot of battles and gained a lot of experience. So I'm not sure I need to see that get nerfed, but this goes along with their continued nerf of all ranged units. So okay, decaying zombies will no longer apply morale penalties to their allies when they're killed. That's a good change. I feel like decaying zombies are supposed to be fodder. It'd be nice if fodder didn't make your whole team rout when it died. Went through the various spells and abilities that summon zombies. All those that summon a zombie from a corpse now give the zombie 3 AP when it appears. Those that spawn a zombie when a target is killed by an ability are unchanged. I think summon zombies are one of the weakest overall summon spells in the game. I think most of the time the summons are worth it when you have the time to place them, often the first round of combat, but are not super worthwhile in the middle of combat once you're already engaged and there's already corpses on the field, because most of the time in those scenarios, the other things your hero can be doing are more valuable than casting a summon spell. Unlike round 7 when everyone's fucking engaged in melee and the hero can like basically one-shot a unit. Well, I want to one-shot that unit, not summon a shitty zombie. So do I think that giving the zombie AP when it appears is better than not having it have AP when it appears? Sure. But I still think that's not a very powerful summoning strategy by and large, and not a very powerful use of your heroes. So maybe this is good for like a necromancer or something. I think necromancers can summon out of corpses that have just died. So having the zombie be able to act when it summons is probably good, but I think it's less impactful on heroes. So maybe just on the units, the non-hero units that can cast. All right. Cavern Giant Slayer now appear on the ability tooltips. Good. Dragons now display a high maintenance tag in their stat sheet that explains their cost, why they cost more upkeep than normal. Cool. Plague and Stormscale Serpent's elusive ability renamed to fleeting to not clash with the elusive racial mind trait. Okay. Wyverns and birds move faster. I gotta look at these wyverns. Birds have been okay. They've been an annoying enemy to deal with because they fly, so you can't really stop them from moving towards you, and they're pretty quick with their flying bonuses, so they don't have any terrain penalties, etc. Blah blah blah. Maybe Wyverns can be a unit that I can use as a gap closer that actually does some impact. I don't know. I got to look at the unit. It's a new unit. We'll see. All right. Wildlife. Dread Spider Matriarch now has 8 blight resistance instead of blight immunity. Okay. Slight nerf. Dread spiders are strong. The Dire Penguin now correctly has a faster movement in swamps due to the amphibious ability. I think this unit is a meme. I had someone use one of these against me. It did absolutely nothing, which was kind of fun, I guess. Bone Wyvern. Now has a 37% chance to apply poison with its attacks. Low percentage application effects of dots that are low impact because the fights never go long enough for the dot to be relevant is totally meaningless. Now it's 40 move. I don't know what it had before. I wish it told me what it changed it from and to. Fire Wyvern. Now has a 60% chance to apply burning with its attacks. It does now does 9 physical, 6 fire with its attacks. Now it's 40 move. Okay, Young Fire Dragon. All right. Are these buffs or nerfs? Who knows? They are changes to the way that dragons and wyverns behave. Okay, I'm not going to read all of them. It seems to be following a pattern. Who knows? Tide spirits and lesser tide spirits are now permanently wet and have had their damage resistances adjusted to compensate for being wet, so they're no longer weaker compared to other spirits. Cool. Kraken Spawn does 12 damage. Increase time of living vines summoned by the Horn God from 1 to 2, so they don't immediately die at the end of the round. It's funny when I read that, right? Because what this means is one of two things happened. Either no one ever used this ability, so no one ever play tested a Horn God and cast vines, or somewhere this report just never got acted on. Yes, your ability should do something, and changing it to update so your ability does do something is probably good. I like this change. I approve. All right, world map. Moving through a vassal city domain will now provide the friendly domain movement cost modifier. Nice. Starvation now destroys a province improvement. Okay. Wizard Tower no longer functions as a spelljammer. Ancient Wonder Wizard Tower no longer functions as a spelljammer. Is the Wizard Tower the absolutely insane one? The one that has the teleporting tier 5 units that cast huge AoE spells? And then like the one that summons like every couple rounds? Like it summons more of these like every 2 rounds or something? That if this is the Ancient Wonder I'm thinking of, it's like 10 times harder than any other Ancient Wonder in the game. And if it wants to have a Spelljammer on it, and if you want to keep that difficulty as it is, I think it's fine if it has a Spelljammer on it. So I get it. Spelljammers are kind of oppressive. They nerfed the easier Spelljammers like the Sanctuary Spelljammer. They've already nerfed, and they're nerfing another Spelljammer here. I get it. That's probably fine, but that one Ancient Wonder I'm thinking about is absolutely out of proportion to the other ones and should have high rewards because it's basically a tier 4 wonder as opposed to the tier 3 the other ones are. All right. Magic materials. Increased Imperial Essence, Imperial Income from 10 to 15. That's weird, right? This is the set bonus for one of the for having 3 Materium of a certain type. But they've nerfed Imperium generation everywhere else but buffed this one. I actually thought this was relatively reasonable to obtain and kind of strong as it was. So weird to see that get buffed. They removed the 5 Imperium from Lucky Clover. Oh, I see. I should have read the other ones before commenting, I guess. And added 10 food income to Lucky Clover. Well, Lucky Clover just got massively nerfed since food income is super low value. Honestly, food is a really shit resource. Just because the way that cities work, the only provinces that are particularly valuable to expand to are provinces with resources on them and non-food resources, right? So food helps you get more provinces, but the only reason why you really care about more provinces is space for your unique improvements if you need them later, but more likely it's all the income off the bonuses to begin with. So like growth in the early game is valuable. Growth in the mid to late game in your cities is super low value. So this is a nerf to Lucky Clovers and a buff to the set. I guess that is a overall nerf to Imperium generation, which is interesting. Okay. All right. Fixes. The AI. Fixed an issue where the AI would wait in certain moment. Wait, Jesus, is this English? Fixed issue where the AI would wait in certain moment for reinforcements while they have enough units to attack. Okay. So apparently sometimes, I think someone told me when I was playing this last on stream that in a previous title by this company, the AI would have larger numbers of stacks of units they could engage with. So it wasn't limited to 3. It was some number bigger than that. And the implication from the chatter was that the AI was coded the same, and it was waiting for units that it couldn't use. So this is probably good. The AI should attack when it has the appropriate units, not wait for more units that it doesn't need and can't use. Sure. Fixed AI city target values, sure. Fixed AI victory condition target values, sure. Fixed an issue where the AI would move to the Ancient Wonders under strength. Would that mean the AI would sometimes just suicide into Ancient Wonders? That's funny. And fixed a small issue where the AI would target unprotected nodes in a hostile domain. Okay. Diplomacy. Fixed issue where becoming another ruler's vassal would cause your vassal cities to declare war on you. I've never had a game where I've finished a lot of games where I deliberately vassal myself to another ruler, but that was just to farm the meta unlocks. I don't know why I would ever want to do that in a real game. Fixed issues where the show ruler button in diplomacy for declarations would show a non-functional hyperlink on the button itself. Funny. Fixed a crash would happen when assigning a Whispering Stone to a free city if the allegiance per turn would then become 0. Economy. Industry compound no longer also buffs the draft to food conversion ratio. I don't know what this ability does, but apparently it was too strong. But I don't recognize this one. Isn't something I'm familiar with. Empire development added conditions to several rights to prevent these from being activated when you don't own a city. Okay, maybe this is like -1 pop in all your cities, generate units, and that could be triggered or something. Who knows? Wild expansion now only triggers on province annexation through building and improvement. Good. I think this was the one that you could trade back and forth, right? And spoils of destruction and destined conquerors now only trigger on raising conquered cities, not your own. Okay. Events. Fixed recruited rulers in story realm. Okay. I don't think we care about most of these, right? Nope. Not really. Bug fixes and events, don't really care. Okay. Interface. Fix an issue with the Pantheon bar would overlap the faction creation. Fix crash when deleting an Empire empty save slot with the controller. Fix issue when the Pantheon fold out menu could not be opened. Did they fix? I just want to see the combat log. I just want to see, did they fix combat log crash? Fixing issues, but sometimes selecting multiple hero skills to level up would accidentally pick the wrong skill. Oh, I'd have been so mad if that happened to me. Fix Wizard Kings as having their race transformation marked as conflicting, where it was the same transformation as is being cast. Okay. Fix the bug where duplicates of already equipped items would not show. I've had that one happen to me. Fix rulers in the Pantheon overview not showing the right amount of affinities. Cool. There's now a distinction between domains and infestations. Okay. Fixed issue when some combat UIs would not properly refresh when a unit gets a buff and debuff and when adjacent to another unit effect was applied. Cool. I think that's for like disease. Fixed entry of magic materials. Fixed empty entry of magic materials in the casting point breakdown. Is that a visual bug, or was that mean they weren't applying when they should have? I don't know. There's no fix for the combat log crash. Was that fixed previously and I maybe just missed it or don't remember mentioning it? That's the number one bug, the number one bug I care about. I want to be able to look at my combat log. Anyway. All right, sure. Bug fixes are good. All right, let's see the spell changes. Lightning Torrent and Blizzard now correctly say they deal 10 damage. It was saying 20. I was so annoyed when I found that it only did 10. Arcane Bond no longer ignores the target status resist. This is another bug that I reported. Both of these are bugs that we've experienced. Consecrate Domain now displays the name of the morale modifier correctly. Good. Primal Mark now gives the correct version of Primal Strike. Good. Fix Burden of Guilt from stacking movement point. These are all ones that were in my review video, right? Burden of Guilt was the movement one. And actually, the guy I was playing with is in chat right now, chatting as we're going through these review in a game where I slowed all of his armies to 0 from that. Such a stupid spell. All right. So it doesn't stack now, which is good. Because all of these needed to be changed. So that's good. Okay. World map. When embarking, transitions from land to water on the strategic map should now animate more smoothly. Outpost watch power is now removed upon converting the outpost to a city. That's stupid. Watchtower outposts are so niche already. Like the idea of not even keeping the improvement when I upgrade to a city seems really dumb. Was it really too powerful? Is it really too powerful to have 2 range buffs on my city site? Okay. Improve performance in the start of a new round. Fix issue when an enemy can take over your siege weapons if they attack within 1 round of capturing a city. Fix endlessly looping dust effects after migrating a city. Fix a crash when a riot. Improve the animation blending, blah, 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 blah. Combat summons are now correctly free when used in the own domain. I hate this buff. The domains that give you buffs to combat effects while you're standing in those domains and their special province improvements, God, they're so weak. It's just like, how often do you get to fight on a specific domain of your choosing? Like never. Like never. Like it just doesn't interact with any of the other systems in the game. It's not like I can, like, if my city's being sieged, I can use the 4th province to the left of my city where I managed to build this improvement at a time that it mattered, and I can defend from that province. It just seems so weird to me. Maybe the cities themselves should have the buffs that all of the provinces in the city give them. That might be interesting, because then maybe I could actually see these buffs, right? Like maybe then if my city was being sieged and attacked, and I happen to have a wildlife whatever the sanctuary is, or whatever this is called, the summoning sanctuary, or whatever the hell it is, I could actually get some benefit out of that. Might be nice. But otherwise, it's just pointless, because then we're never going to fight in that province ever, so the buff is meaningless. Fix an issue that prevented multi-stack battles on cave entrances. Good. Fix a rare crash and saves if a city was raised. When multiple items are queued for dismantling and no longer complete in a single turn. Fix edge cases where rioting starvation could disconnect ancient wonders from the city. Okay. All right. All right. Thoughts on this? This is all movement in the right direction. I am a little concerned the AI buffs don't seem meaningful enough. A couple of the tome buffs seem like they missed the point, but there's a lot of really good changes in here. I need to evaluate the impact of the hero changes, and I need to see the building. I guess the building was a setting, so it wasn't quite a big deal. But in general, heroes were too strong. Range was too strong, I guess. But I didn't see the nerfs I was expecting to see for the hero casting tree, which means even if they nerf all the archers, well, the heroes are still going to be super strong for ranged attacks. So you're still going to have that standoff stuff. We'll have to see how it actually plays out. But movement in the right direction is good nonetheless, and hopefully we'll see more of these large balance patches. And I'm really happy about this first part. The research scaling was a huge problem, and they need to address this in multiple ways, and this seems like a good start for that. So, all right, fingers crossed, cautiously optimistic about this patch. Let's hope it's more impactful than it looks like, and let's hope they keep doing more like this, because it's pretty interesting.